Not all chosen ones are what you think. Some are meant to awaken the world. Others are meant to break it. Because power doesn't come with a moral compass. It doesn't choose good or evil. It simply exists. And when a chosen one falls into darkness, their strength doesn't disappear, it transforms. And what happens next? That's what makes them truly dangerous. Some of them start with the purest intentions, believing they are here to guide and heal, until their mission twists into something else entirely. Others were never meant to follow human rules in the first place. Their very existence disrupts reality itself, and then there are the ones who don't even remember who they are until it's too late. You may think you know what it means to be chosen, but after today, you'll never look at it the same way again. Stay with me until the end, because once you see the truth, there's no going back. I'd like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Some people believe that chosen ones are always forces of good, divine beings meant to bring wisdom, healing, and enlightenment to the world. But what if I told you that's not the whole truth? That not all chosen ones were meant to walk the path of light? That some, whether by choice or by something beyond their control, become the most dangerous forces to ever exist? Because true power doesn't discriminate. It doesn't choose sides. Is simply energy, an unstoppable force that can be used to create or to destroy. And while some chosen ones use their abilities to awaken others, to guide, to elevate, there are those whose paths twist into something else entirely. At first, they walk the same road as all others. They are gifted, guided, set apart. But somewhere along the way, something shifts. Was it the temptation of power? Was it deception? Or were they always meant to become something darker? The most terrifying thing about these beings is that they don't start out as villains. They begin with the same potential for greatness as any other chosen one. They may even believe they are fulfilling their purpose, that their actions are justified, that they are still walking toward their destiny. But power has a way of distorting truth. It whispers in the mind, planting ideas, making them believe that they alone hold the answers, that their way is the only way. And once that belief takes root, once they convince themselves that they are beyond consequence, there is no turning back. History has seen these beings before, individuals who rose with a vision, who believed they were destined to lead, to awaken, to change everything. And they did, but not always in the way they were meant to. Some of the most feared leaders, the most dangerous minds, the most disruptive forces in history, many of them weren't ordinary people. They were once chosen ones. But somewhere along their journey, their mission became corrupted. They no longer saw themselves as guides, but as rulers. No longer as protectors, but as forces beyond consequence. Some of them held knowledge so powerful that it could either elevate humanity or break it. Others became masters of manipulation, bending entire civilizations to their will, leading millions into chaos without them even realizing it. Some were never meant to follow human rules in the first place. They existed beyond this world, connected to something far greater than we can comprehend. And when they walked among us, reality itself was altered. The question is, how does it happen? How does a being with the potential to bring enlightenment turn into a force of destruction? It doesn't happen overnight. It happens in moments. In small choices that seem insignificant at first, but slowly shape their path. Maybe it starts with a desire for control, at first, just a little. A belief that the ends justify the means, that a few sacrifices along the way are necessary for the greater good. And that's where the danger begins. Because once a chosen one believes that their mission is more important than the lives affected by it, they step into the shadows without even realizing it. And the scariest part? They don't see themselves as the villains. They truly believe they are still fulfilling their divine purpose, even when their actions cause suffering, even when they manipulate, deceive, or destroy, even when they become everything they once stood against. And by the time they realize it, if they ever do, it's too late. But the most dangerous of them all? The ones who don't even remember who they are. The ones who walk through life unaware of the immense power that sleeps within them. Lost, disconnected, searching for something they can't define. Because here's the terrifying truth, when a being of unimaginable potential forgets its purpose, it doesn't just disappear. It festers. It builds. And when they finally awaken, it might be too late for the world to stop what comes next. And that is why you need to know the truth. You need to understand the 7 most dangerous types of chosen ones, who they are, how they came to be, and why their very existence can change everything. Because some of them rise to fulfill their destiny, becoming beacons of wisdom and transformation. But others, they lose their way. And when that happens, their power doesn't disappear, it twists, becoming something else entirely. Something dangerous. Because the most destructive forces in history weren't ordinary people. They were those who once believed they were destined for greatness until their mission became their downfall. Before continuing with our spiritual evolution, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Among all the different types of chosen ones, few are as dangerous as the misguided mission holders. These are the ones who start out with the purest of intentions, driven by a deep sense of purpose, believing they were sent here to transform the world. They are leaders, teachers, visionaries. But somewhere along the way, something changes. Their mission, once rooted in truth, begins to shift. It becomes less about the people they were meant to help and more about their own vision. And that's when everything starts to fall apart. At first, they are beacons of hope. They inspire, they guide, they awaken. People are drawn to them because they radiate conviction, because they seem to hold the answers that others have spent their whole lives searching for. But then, a dangerous belief takes root, the idea that only they can see the truth. That their way is the only way. That anyone who disagrees is standing in the way of progress. And that's where the corruption begins. Not all misguided mission holders start out craving power. Many of them genuinely want to make the world better. But the problem is they believe so strongly in their mission that they stop questioning themselves. They no longer accept criticism. They no longer listen to different perspectives. And over time, they convince themselves that the ends justify the means. If they must manipulate to spread their message, so be it. If they must destroy in order to rebuild, then so be it. If they must sacrifice others along the way, then maybe those people were never meant to be part of the new world they are creating. And that's what makes them so terrifying. They don't see themselves as villains. They see themselves as saviors. Even as they cause destruction, they tell themselves they are doing what must be done. Even as they silence those who challenge them, they justify it as protecting the truth. Even as they betray the very ideals they once stood for, they believe they are still on the right path. And that kind of unwavering conviction is one of the most dangerous forces in existence. History is filled with examples of misguided mission holders. They appear in every era, in every civilization. Some start off as spiritual leaders, guiding people toward enlightenment, until they begin demanding absolute loyalty, until their teachings become unquestionable doctrine. Others rise in positions of power, believing they alone can create a better world, until they begin to see anyone who disagrees as an enemy that must be eliminated. Some begin as healers, thinkers, protectors, but in their obsession to fix the world, they become the very thing they once fought against. And the scariest part? They are almost impossible to stop, because they do not see themselves as corrupted. If you tell them they've lost their way, they will say that you are blind. If you try to reason with them, they will say that you are part of the problem. If you try to oppose them, they will see you as an obstacle that must be removed. And when a chosen one stops questioning themselves, when they believe that their mission justifies any action, there is almost no way to reach them. But not all misguided mission holders work on a massive scale. Some exist in smaller ways, in everyday life. Have you ever met someone who claimed to know exactly what was best for others, even when it was clear they were causing harm? Have you ever encountered a person who claimed to be a healer, a mentor, a leader, yet their actions seemed to drain those around them rather than uplift them? Have you ever seen someone become so obsessed with their vision of the future that they lost sight of the people suffering in present? These are the seeds of a misguided mission holder. And once that seed takes root, it is nearly impossible to pull them back to reality. But not all chosen ones become dangerous because of their own choices. Some were never meant to follow human rules in the first place. Their minds hold knowledge beyond anything we can comprehend, secrets of the universe, fragments of realities we don't even know exist. And when a being like that walks among us, when they carry knowledge that could shift the very foundation of what we believe to be true, the world isn't always ready. The people around them fear what they don't understand. And in that fear, they seek to control, to silence, to suppress. But knowledge cannot be caged. And when it finally breaks free, the consequences are beyond anything we can predict. Among the most enigmatic and dangerous types of chosen ones are the galactic outliers, beings who were never meant to fit into this reality. They carry knowledge that doesn't belong here, wisdom that seems too advanced, thoughts that disrupt the very foundation of what we believe to be true. Some claim they are emissaries from beyond, sent to guide humanity toward its next stage of evolution. Others feel like exiles, trapped in a world that was never meant to contain them. But no matter how they arrived here, one thing is certain. Their existence alone is enough to shift reality itself. From the moment they are born, galactic outliers feel different. Not just in the way most chosen ones do, but in a way that makes them feel like they are watching life from behind a veil, as if they are remembering something instead of learning it. They grasp complex ideas at an unnatural speed. They see patterns others can't. They understand concepts that should take a lifetime to develop. And yet, they struggle to explain it to those around them, because their knowledge does not come from books. It does not come from experience. It comes from something else entirely. Their minds are wired differently. They do not process the world the way others do. They receive downloads of information, bursts of insight that seem to appear from nowhere. They may experience visions, hear messages, or have dreams that feel more real than waking life. And because of this, they often grow up feeling isolated, misunderstood, alien. They speak of things that make no sense to others. They ask questions no one else thinks to ask. And in their search for truth, they often find themselves alone. But what happens when a galactic outlier tries to share what they know? That's where the real danger begins. Because this world is not always ready for their knowledge. Their ideas challenge everything: society, history, religion, science. They speak of hidden forces, of energy beyond what we can measure, of realities layered on top of our own. Some people listen. Some are awakened by their words. But many, too many, fear what they cannot understand. And in that fear, they reject, they ridicule, they try to suppress. But knowledge, once revealed, cannot be forgotten. Some galactic outliers withdraw completely, retreating into solitude, convinced that humanity is not yet ready for their message. Others become relentless, pushing forward, determined to awaken as many people as possible. And that is where the danger lies, because knowledge is power, and power, in the wrong hands, can create or destroy. What happens when a galactic outlier shares their knowledge with someone who wasn't meant to receive it? What happens when secrets meant for a higher state of consciousness fall into the hands of those who seek control instead of truth? There are things in this universe that were never meant to be known by all. There are forces that should never be disturbed. And yet, when an outlier refuses to hold back, when they reveal what was never meant to be revealed, they risk setting something into motion that cannot be undone. The greatest challenge for a galactic outlier is learning how to balance what they know with what the world is ready to receive. Because if they give too little, they leave people lost, searching, disconnected. But if they give too much, they risk opening doors that should have remained closed. They risk bringing chaos instead of awakening. They risk pushing humanity into something it is not yet prepared for. And that is why galactic outliers are feared. Not because they intend harm, but because their very existence disrupts reality. Because when one of them walks among us, they are not just a person, they are a doorway. And once that doorway is opened, there is no way to close it. Some wield knowledge, others wield fear. But the ones who wield both, they do not just change the world, they rewrite it. Among all the chosen ones, there are two types that stand out as the most unpredictable, those whose very existence bends the fabric of fate itself. On one side, the vengeful intercessors, beings so deeply connected to divine justice that the universe itself seems to strike down anyone who dares to harm them. On the other side, the charismatic manipulators, chosen ones whose voices alone can shift reality, leading entire movements without lifting a single weapon. Both possess power beyond comprehension. Both can shape the world in ways no one else can. And both, if corrupted, can bring devastation unlike anything seen before. The vengeful intercessors are not to be taken lightly. They walk through life surrounded by an unseen force, something ancient, something powerful, something that ensures balance is always restored in their favor. These are the ones who never need to seek revenge because karma moves unnaturally fast around them. Those who betray them, who harm them, who try to stop them, they always seem to meet a fate they never saw coming. Accidents, ruined reputations, losses that cannot be explained. It is as if the universe itself takes their battles personally. At first, they may not even realize what they are. They may see it as coincidence, as luck, as some invisible shield that protects them from harm. But over time, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And when they do realize the truth, that their energy is directly tied to the rise and fall of those around them, they face a choice. Do they use this power for justice? Or do they allow themselves to fall into something darker? Because justice, when unchecked, can quickly turn into punishment. And punishment, when justified too many times, can become destruction. The danger of a vengeful intercessor is not just in their ability to invoke retribution, it's in their belief that they are always right. That every misfortune that befalls their enemies is deserved. That every loss, every downfall, every consequence is simply the universe balancing itself. But what happens when they start seeing enemies everywhere? What happens when they stop questioning whether the punishment truly fits the crime? That is when a vengeful intercessor becomes unstoppable, because no force in the universe punishes its own weapon. And then there are the charismatic manipulators, chosen ones who do not need divine forces to shape reality. They do it with their words, with their presence, with their ability to make others believe in something so deeply that they would follow them to the ends of the earth without hesitation. They are the leaders, the prophets, the voices that echo in the minds of those who listen. And once someone falls under their influence, escaping is nearly impossible. At first, their charisma seems like a gift. They bring people together, they inspire, they ignite movements. But the true danger of a charismatic manipulator lies in their ability to make people stop thinking for themselves. Their words override logic. Their vision becomes the only vision. And the more followers they gather, the more powerful they become. Because belief is the strongest force in existence. And when millions believe in the same idea, reality itself begins to shift to match it. Some of the most powerful figures in history have been charismatic manipulators. Some brought peace, enlightenment, transformation. Others led civilizations to ruin, convinced their way was the only way. And the terrifying thing? The line between the two is almost invisible. Because no matter how well-intentioned they start, the moment they realize the full extent of their influence, they are faced with the ultimate temptation. What if I could change the world exactly the way I want it? Not all charismatic manipulators become corrupt. Some remain true to their purpose. But those who do fall, they do not just lead people astray. They reshape history. They create new realities, new systems of belief, new ways of thinking that do not break easily. And once their version of truth takes hold, it can take generations to undo the damage. Because what is more dangerous than a leader with absolute conviction? A leader whose conviction is so strong that the entire world bends to match it. The vengeful intercessors and the charismatic manipulators, two sides of the same dangerous coin. One wields the power of divine consequence. The other wields the power of the human mind itself. And when either of them falls into darkness, there is no force strong enough to stop what comes next. Some chosen ones are so deeply connected to the divine that they no longer belong to this world. Their minds exist in a constant state of expansion, touching realms beyond what most people can perceive. These are the divinely detached, souls who have ascended past earthly limitations, yet struggle to function in a world that still demands human connection. They do not think like others. They do not feel like others. They live with one foot in this reality and the other in something much greater. But in their search for higher truths, they risk losing something just as important, themselves. From an early age, divinely detached individuals feel disconnected from the material world. Money, status, routine, none of it holds meaning for them. They crave something deeper, something real, something beyond the illusions of society. They may spend their lives meditating, studying ancient wisdom, or isolating themselves in pursuit of enlightenment. And when they speak, their words feel like prophecy, resonating with an energy that seems otherworldly. But here lies the danger. Their detachment from the physical world can become a detachment from reality itself. Because while they may see beyond the veil, they struggle to exist within it. They give guidance without understanding the human cost. They offer wisdom without recognizing its consequences. They tell others to let go of pain, of attachment of the self, without realizing that to be human is to feel. And in doing so, they can lead people into dangerous territory. History is filled with divinely detached figures who believe they had transcended human limitations, leaders who claimed enlightenment yet lost all empathy, spiritual guides who led followers into blind devotion, thinkers so consumed by higher consciousness that they forgot the reality in which they lived. They do not intend harm, but harm often follows them. Because when a person sees themselves as above the world, they stop believing they have a responsibility to it. And then there are those who exist not just between the physical and the divine, but between realities themselves, the multidimensional misfits. These chosen ones are the most unstable of all, not because they lack power, but because they have too much. Their consciousness does not belong to just one timeline, just one existence. They drift between dimensions, between possibilities, between versions of themselves that are both real and unreal at the same time. For them, time does not flow in a straight line. They experience déjà vu so frequently that they no longer trust what is real. They recall memories of things that never happened. They hear echoes of conversations that have not yet taken place. Their dreams feel like warnings. Their instincts seem to come from something beyond themselves. And as they try to navigate this world, they struggle with one terrifying question: which version of reality is the right one? The more they drift, the harder it becomes to stay grounded. Some lose themselves entirely, vanishing into their own minds, unable to function in a world that operates by laws they can no longer follow. Others bring back knowledge from places they were never meant to go, information that should have remained hidden, truths that could break the very structure of this reality. Because when a multidimensional misfit unlocks something they were not supposed to, the effects are not just personal. They are cosmic. And what happens when they encounter others like them? What happens when two beings, both shifting between dimensions, cross paths in the wrong place at the wrong time? Some believe that certain multidimensional misfits were never meant to meet, that their energies, when combined, can tear open something that was meant to stay closed. There are stories whispered across timelines of realities collapsing in on themselves, of people who vanished without a trace, of entire civilizations that were erased because someone altered the flow of existence in a way that could not be undone. Some multidimensional misfits are aware of this risk. They try to stay grounded, to remain present, to resist the pull of realities that call to them. But others give in. They allow themselves to drift further and further until they are no longer part of this world at all. And when they do, what remains of them here? Shadows, echoes, glitches in the system. The feeling that something is off, that time is repeating, that you've been here before, but differently. The greatest danger of the divinely detached is that they forget what it means to be human. The greatest danger of the multidimensional misfits is that they forget which reality is real. And when either of them reaches the point of no return, they do not just lose themselves. They take pieces of the world with them. Because the greatest threat is not those who seek power, is those who no longer recognize what reality even is. Some chosen ones misuse their power. Others are consumed by it. But the most dangerous of them all? The veiled transcenders, those who don't even remember who they are. They walk through life unaware of the immense force that sleeps within them, lost in a reality that was never truly theirs. They feel disconnected, as if searching for something just beyond their reach, something they can't define. But here's the terrifying truth: when a being of unimaginable power forgets its purpose, it doesn't just disappear. It festers. It builds. And when they finally remember, it might be too late for the world to stop what comes next. For a veiled transcender, life feels like an unsolvable mystery. They are haunted by dreams that don't feel like dreams. They see glimpses of things that never happened, at least not in this version of reality. They feel drawn to places they've never been, recognize faces they've never met, and sense an urgency within them that they cannot explain. They don't know why, but they are always searching. And the longer they go without answers, the more restless they become. Some spend their entire lives never remembering who they truly are. They live as wanderers, as seekers, as lost souls moving through existence with an unshakable feeling that they are missing something crucial. And perhaps that is what keeps them safe, because as long as they remain unaware, as long as their power stays buried, the world remains untouched by what they might become. But the ones who do awaken? They are the most unpredictable forces in existence. Because when a veiled transcender finally remembers, it is never gradual. It is never gentle. It is a flood of violent, unstoppable surge of knowledge, of energy, of realization, so overwhelming that it shatters everything they once believed about themselves. They do not just regain their past. They regain every version of themselves that ever existed. Every timeline, every possibility, every fragment of power that was stripped from them the moment they forgot. And then they must make a choice. Some awaken and embrace their purpose. They step into their true power, understanding that they were always meant to be something more. They become guides, protectors, architects of reality itself. But others? Others do not handle the awakening so well. Because what happens when someone suddenly remembers that they were never meant to be human? What happens when they realize that this world was never meant to contain them? Some veiled transcenders awaken with rage, with grief, with the unbearable weight of knowing that they were trapped in a life that was never meant to be theirs. And in their desperation to reclaim what was lost, they tear through reality itself, disrupting the balance of existence. They do not care for the consequences because to them, nothing is real anymore. Nothing except the need to escape. And those who stand in their way, those who try to stop them, they do not last long. Because a veiled transcender who is fully awakened is untouchable. They do not play by the rules of this world. They do not bend to the laws of time, space, or consequence. And that is why they are the most dangerous of all. Because when they finally remember who they are, the question is no longer whether they will reshape the world. The question is whether the world will survive it. But here lies the paradox. What if a veiled transcender was never meant to awaken? What if their amnesia was not a mistake, but a safeguard? Some believe that these beings were placed in human form as a form of control, a way to keep their power contained until the right moment. Others think their forgetting was a test to see if they could rediscover their truth on their own without being consumed by it. And then there is the darkest theory of all, that some veiled transcenders were never supposed to remember at all. That if they do, something far worse than their awakening will be unleashed. That they are not just individuals who lost themselves, but weapons that were deactivated for a reason. And when they wake up, so does everything else that was locked away with them. Not all veiled transcenders reclaim their power. Some spend their entire lives never knowing who they were meant to be. But the ones who do, they do not just change their own lives. They do not just change the world. They change the very nature of existence itself. And now you must ask yourself, if everything you thought you knew about yourself was stripped away, if you had spent your whole life wandering, searching, never knowing what you were missing, what would you do when you finally remembered? Now you know the truth. Not all chosen ones walk the path of light. Some lose themselves in their mission. Some carry knowledge too dangerous to be shared. Some wield influence that bends reality itself. And some don't even remember who they are until it's too late. But here's the real question, what about you? Have you ever felt like you were meant for something more? Like there was a part of you that's always been searching, always been waiting for an answer you couldn't quite define? Have you ever wondered why you don't see the world the same way others do? What if the reason you've always felt different is because you are? Because the truth is, some chosen ones rise to greatness, others fall into destruction. And some are still asleep, unaware of the power buried inside them. The only question left is, which one are you? If this video has changed your spiritual journey and helped you connect with your universal strength, subscribe to the channel, leave a like below, and activate the notification bell so we can notify you when new content arrives. We also suggest watching the video indicated on the screen so you can continue your journey of spiritual growth and inner evolution of knowledge. Thank you for staying with us until the end, and see you in the next video.